food was always medicinal, and now it actually creates disease, especially in America. And we're starting to shift that and elevate the awareness to it. Now, I know you're funding things and you're actually putting capital into shifting that paradigm. Welcome to Entrepreneurs, the Playbook. We're here live at the National Restaurant Association. I'm here with an incredible entrepreneur, Bradley Bostic, the chairman of HC1, and of course his own managing directorship of the Health Cloud Capital Company, financing well-being is the way that I look at it. Welcome, Brad, to the Playbook.
It is so great to see you, David. So good to be here.
So when we're at a show like this, a lot of people don't know how well-infused wellness is in all different shows, but especially in our food system. And there's a lot of things that people don't think about that has really changed your life, your trajectory in business. What are some of the things that you're doing financially to change the way people eat?
Well, let me just put a really fine point on that. So I used to be on the board of a hospital called Eskenazi Health, which is a critical access hospital in Marion County of Indianapolis. And one of the things that we found was that a huge correlated factor for people who were very sick often was their food supply. So people talk about food deserts and all of that. So we actually created a program that was called Food as Medicine. And these people families would go to the primary care doctor, and the prescription, instead of for drugs, would be for food. And then we have actual groceries that are fully clean foods that are vegetables, fruits, and actually have urban farms that are associated with them that we'd have a lot of young people work in. And then you'd go in and get this better food and come to find that actually made people much more healthy. So there's a huge connection.
And there's been a shift. Food was always medicinal, and now it actually creates disease, especially in America. And we're starting to shift that and elevate the awareness to it. Now, I know you're funding things and you're actually putting capital into shifting that paradigm. What are some of the things that you're working on in healthcare to shift that paradigm?
Well, our businesses are all about identifying risk signals that can be taken. You can take action on them in order to help people stay healthy and prevent disease. And then if they get something that's wrong, they can get better faster because we're diagnosing more quickly and accurately. And then ultimately, if they need some kind of an experimental treatment, there's the ability to transition into that world. Now, I'm a big believer that the part where you're trying to keep people healthy needs to include some of these more advanced, some people might call them more Eastern medicine approaches that relate to doing things like testing your microbiome and making sure that you have great social connections and community, which is a huge part of mental health, which contributes to healthcare. But then ultimately, the more conventional things, like how do the lab values that over time tell the story of your life, and how do those relate back to the kinds of foods that you eat? So I think part of the power of AI is to be able to take all of that information, biometrics, diet, conventional testing, laboratory, and start painting this Seurat masterpiece where instead of just seeing these little dots that relate to you're sick right now, you're seeing this whole constellation that gives you this beautiful picture that says, here's the way that you should eat and exercise and care for yourself that ultimately gives you the healthiest possible life. And really, ultimately, it relates to longevity.
According to your own personal code.
Right.
Which is interesting. Now, one of the other aspects is just the medication side of it. We're prescribing and not preparing for health. And there's a lot of conflicts that cause great danger because so many people are on not just so many supplements and different, over-the-counter drugs and supplements, but there's so many people that have so many different doctors prescribing different things, and it's humanly impossible to see all the conflicts that exist. You also assist in facilitating or making easy what are we actually prescribing to people and what impacts will they have when they're combined with one another.
That's right. Yeah, our company DecisionRx uses this advanced technology to automatically analyze all the prescriptions that people are getting within a health plan that we work with. And then when you identify somebody, or the technology identifies somebody who's on multiple medications that are likely hurting them at worst, and at least not helping them, at best. And when we identify that, we're able to take this concierge approach to pharmacy to actually go to that individual and their physician and get them on the right medications. And this is all coordinated through the healthcare insurance. So instead of just saying, hey, David, what medicine are you on and how do we get you on the cheapest possible pill? It says, hey, David, what do you really need and how do we get you on the things that are actually going to make you well? Which makes it so the healthcare costs a lot less too, because you're not getting hospitalized and admitted to the ER because of the fact that you're taking something that actually hurt you. And there are real stories every day. I can share a lot of them about how without this kind of technology, we're literally harming people by prescribing to them.
So interesting is that as I sit here at these different shows and we've done thousands of interviews with all the eclectic group of people, the entrepreneurs, the billionaires, millionaires, celebrities, athletes, and entertainers, there's now a common denominator of community and how we build community. You have your own podcast, for example. I know for myself, if somebody would have told me that I would have a brand, a community, and a podcast from where I came from, more in the academia, in the corporate world, I would have said, why would anybody ever follow, listen, subscribe, etc.? You have an incredible podcast. And, it's kind of like reality TV. Everyone has their own niche. Boombostic is a great podcast to get insight into the real part of being healthy. What motivated you to have a podcast coming from, look, you got better things to do than take your time interviewing people and creating content.
It was pretty simple. We were doing such powerful work through our companies, but we weren't getting the word out as effectively to the masses about the power of these innovations that were out there. And I kept seeing all of this conjecture in the national media about things that could be done better or should be done better in healthcare. And I was living it every day. Yet there was just this barrier between what was actually getting delivered by our companies and what was getting communicated out there. So I also realized that people appreciate having a real story told by a real person who's making things happen. There's a trust factor and an authenticity that comes through that versus doing, say, like a contrived case study through your marketing team. Not to take anything away from marketing teams, but I think we've moved to this point where you can close that gap in terms of the connections and the relationships. And as you said, build community. So I launched Boombostic Health to really bring that information to more people about these innovations that can help you get healthier. That was the original intention, but now it's really blossomed into this combination of health and wealth and how do you have the best longevity? How do you get into functional medicine? I'm spending time with the top entrepreneurs in all of those areas. And it's really happened because of the community that started as its core as the Boombostic Health podcast.
And one of the interesting things is a lot of people feel as if you get distracted by doing that. And the truth is, there's mechanisms of capturing what you are doing, that vulnerability, the reality, the conversations that you're having anyway, or utilizing it to proactively have conversations that you'd want to have in a business meeting. We now amplify it to the public. In elevating the awareness, there's a lot of noise.
Hey, look, the CEO of one of our longtime customers at HC1, our lab data business, he was always too busy to come to town to meet until I launched the podcast and it started getting traction. And then he said, I'd really like to be on that. And so lo and behold, it became possible for him to come to town to meet. So for me personally, I'm on this mission to improve the health of everybody. We're already impacting healthcare for millions of people a year. And in order to do that as best as possible, there's just no way around the fact that you need to have a way to connect with more people and create more awareness. And that's really what the Boombostic Health podcast does.
It's so funny how people prioritize, and time is a priority. And when we are now not a commercial, but we're a show, it's amazing what we can do. Now, the post-production side of that is even more powerful. If we could prioritize 3 different messages today that you think the public itself should be aware of, what would those three messages in healthcare be?
Well, first of all, I would say that the future has never been brighter in terms of being able to bring a more personalized approach to healthcare to every single individual. The second thing I would say is, while yes, there's a lot of problem with the way healthcare gets paid for, and there was this tragic situation where the United Healthcare Insurance CEO got murdered because of some
They actually made a Law and Order out of it, so it happened.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, what a disgusting act by somebody to take somebody's life because of their just ignorance about how this works. That guy wasn't creating the actual rules and regulations. He was just trying to run the business.
The shareholder value actually is what a CEO.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So in any event, that just disgusts me. But I think this second thing I would say is that we will, with technology, get to the point sooner than you might think, to where everybody who goes in for a care episode is going to know upfront exactly what that's going to cost, and they're going to know what their responsibility is for that, and whether or not it is the optimal pathway for care. And I'd say the third thing is that we're going to see this overall approach to longevity and health and wellness that combines what's coming through your biometric tracking, your laboratory testing, your physical. And it's going to become more like with your financial world, where today you can see this integrated view. You're going to have that within healthcare. And I think that'll happen. I think within the next 10 years, we'll look back. And so we had this Healthcare Innovation Summit at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this past week. It's a fantastic time. We brought together all these healthcare leaders. And we learned some trivia that in 1911, when they ran the first Indy 500,
Ray Haroon.
What's that?
Ray Haroon.
There you go. The average speed. Do you know the average speed?
Oh no.
Of the winning driver.
Car. I know there's
two people in the car because they didn't have a rearview mirror.
It was only 60?
74. 74 is the average speed of the winner. Now the average speed is
195.
320.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, 234.
That's right.
Like 234.
230.
Yeah, not 3 yet. 234-ish, let's say. And I think in healthcare right now, we're going like 74 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I think in 10 years, we'll be going 234 miles an hour in a good way to better serve patient health.
Yeah, I think what happens too within that as we finish up is so many people want to live longer. That's what people used to say when I was young, right? You want to live longer. So eat the food groups and,
right,
talk about going 25 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah.
But what we're really after today is to feel alive, right? And that's what's missing. A lot of people have lost the feeling of what it's like to be alive.
I think that's right.
And that inspiration, intuition, all the different things that come along with it. And you can see it from when people have dis-ease, that they don't want to live longer with dis-ease.
Yeah.
They want to feel alive. And you have so many different things that you're doing content-wise, funding-wise, business-wise. You're helping to change the world. That must, for you, allow you to feel alive.
It is, absolutely. I'm so fortunate to have that opportunity and to have had the combination of influences on my life that have led me here. And you bring up something that I have to mention. So in the 90s, people were still smoking a lot more cigarettes.
Yeah.
Okay. And they knew that it wasn't good for them, but they just kept doing it. But it had some negatives, like it would make them smell kind of bad and their teeth looked bad and all that. The equivalent of that today is absolutely our digital devices and social media. And I'm not old fashioned. I'm engaged in social and all that. I try to do that with purpose. But somehow we're going to, in terms of people like losing this connection and losing purpose, think about how often you're around somebody, especially a young person, where they're so affixed to their device, they won't even make eye contact with you.
No,
right? They're lost in this world of trying to impress these people who are not worth impressing. And so somehow we're going to have to crack the code on that. I think that ultimately the difference, though, is with smoking, you didn't have to use a cigarette to go to the store and buy the stuff you wanted to buy. Literally with these devices, you have to use them all the time. I have to use them to get into my condo.
Right.
I have to use it to get, in here with my barcode. Right. So I don't know. I mean, what if you had to smoke a cigarette in order to go, get your registration? That would have been even harder. So I think I know that with human ingenuity, we will do the right thing and ultimately it will work out, but I'm not really sure I see exactly how we do that yet.
Not yet, but if anybody can find it, it'll be my friend Bradley Bostic, chairman of HC1. And also, you got to check out the Boombostic Health podcast. incredible insights on how to feel alive. Bradley Bostic, thanks for joining me here at the National Restaurant Association. I'm David Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.